Hello and welcome into our YouTube page, as today we'll be joined by the Athletic Director of the Citadel, Mike Capaccio. He's been in that role since 2018, and we certainly appreciate the time Mike gave us in sitting down and answering a few questions. Without further ado, let's get to that interview. Appreciate you checking us out, and today I have my Citadel hat on because I'm pleased to be joined by the Athletic Director of the Citadel, Mike Capaccio, who's been in that role since 2018, was an Athletic Director previously, and we appreciate the time. Mike, I want to jump right into it because I got a lot I want to ask you about. But first, let's
Please
start
do.
with you and your career, because you started out, you're a basketball player. You're in the Hall of Fame at your college, had a good career, got into basketball coaching, and were a coach for a long time, and then eventually made that move over to where you are now, working your way up to athletic director, where you are at the Citadel. So
Yeah,
I just want
and
to, yeah, go ahead.
yes, sir, Luke, and that's great. I'll tell you, all I really wanted to do was go to college. I wanted to graduate. I wanted to teach high school and coach football and basketball in high school. That's all I really wanted to do. I was in coaching high school, and my dad got very sick. I moved back to Chicago and got a chance to get a job at a junior college where I needed a job outside of Chicago, and that's kind of how I really got into college athletics. That was 1983. I was a very young man at that time, and I was a head coach, and I enjoyed it. Had a chance. I wanted to go to graduate school, so I moved on to Indian Hills Community College. And when I got to Indian Hills, they wanted to build the program to a national level. So we pretty much started from scratch. And within 7 years, we were able to win our first national championship. And eight, we won our second. Nine, we won our third. But the coaching thing, the money, the AAU type of things had gotten too complicated for me. You couldn't build the relationships like you wanted to and like you used to have. And Chicago was my home base. Obviously, that's where I was born, and that's where I love the kids and I love the coaches. But I got into administration. I started out as director of basketball operations. I moved into a role that I oversaw all fundraising for the college for athletics, and then I got into the executive director of the foundation, which basically put me into a fundraising role. And really, Luke, what that was like, it was just like coaching. I was recruiting kids, I was signing kids. So I loved it. I had a chance to build relationships, and I really, really enjoyed that part of it. Fast forward, I moved on from there, was the CEO of a foundation, kind of out of sports a little bit for a couple of years, but I was still vice president for athletics. And then I came here as the vice president for the for the foundation for athletic fundraising. And when this opportunity opened up, General Sams came to me and said, "Hey, Mike, we want you to move into this role. This is a good role for you." So it's kind of how I got here. I don't know how I got here, to be honest with you, but that was the trail I took. And it was a long trail, 50 miles of rough highway, I'll tell you that. But that's how I'm here.
Yeah, which is interesting. So, I mean, what was that change like? What was it like for you personally to go from the coaching side to more of the administration side? Was that a natural progression for you, or were there some, challenges in making that move?
There was a lot of challenges, Luke. The one thing I missed was the kids because I enjoyed the young people. The game was changing. Like I said, the old school, which I was old school, had been changing. You weren't dealing with high school coaches anymore. You were dealing with AAU coaches, and that really, really changed. And so I really wanted to get out of that. I was getting a little bit up there, and not old by any means, but chasing around 18-year-old kids, it's difficult. And I spent a lot of time on the road recruiting. So had a chance to go out to UNCW and start a very small role down there, and then kind of worked my way up and had some good times and bad times. But it was quite a journey. But being at the Citadel, having these two roles as well too. I've been here, since 2012, and I've been about half and half as vice president for development, and then with the athletic department. So it was an interesting journey and one that I enjoyed.
It's been 2 decades now since you first became an athletic director. Obviously, so much is changing in college sports with the NIL, conference realignment, all that stuff. But from your side specifically, from your role, I mean, how much has things at all changed over the past 20 years? How much change have you seen as an athletic director the last 2 decades?
Well, I've seen a lot of change, and I tell you, a lot of that kicks back into the recruiting aspect of it when AAU got really big and took over, and these kids were going out to Las Vegas and they were being very, very taken care of. Which there's nothing against. There's nothing wrong with that, but that thing kind of switched the power from the high school coaches to the AAU coaches, and so that was a very, very difficult change and one that I did not enjoy because I enjoyed the relationship with the high school coaches. and their parents. And that changed. Right now, everything that's going on, it's brutal out there. I think the biggest thing for us and for most people, at least for me, I'll speak for myself, is the immediate eligibility. Because when you can walk out of here and be it, and we've had kids here start school here, they walk out of here and go to another school and are immediately eligible. And that makes it very difficult, Luke. The transfer portal is difficult. The NIL is difficult. We're at an institution right now that stands for some different things. Our boss is not, we do not promote the NIL. We let our young people do it if they get it involved. That's not a problem. But we have taken a route right now, not with the collectives and things like that, unlike probably most of the other country. So we're at a disadvantage with that. And our young people, as you already know, have to get up and march and get to formation and in the evening and things like that. So this is not a thing. So all that has made it more complicated. I think the biggest thing that I see a lot of times is a Jay Wright, a Roy Williams. These guys got out. These guys were guys, Ed Conroy, that we have here. Ed's one of only two coaches to ever win 20 games here. They're program builders. They can't build programs anymore. Every year, you're going to have a new team. I was talking to a good friend of mine up in the ACC, and he told me, he said, I don't coach anymore. I'm a GM. He said, I'm even spending time with donors trying to get money. I'm working on NIL deals with kids, or I'm working transfer portal. He said, really, coaching isn't really what I do much anymore. And so I think it's eating at a lot of these people. Of course, they're making a lot of money, so you can put up with it. But it's become just so much more complicated. And it's always been complicated. Please don't get me wrong. But right now, with the avenues that these people have, the young people, it's very difficult for coaches to build programs and establish an identity because there really isn't one.
Piggybacking off of that question and answer, the other half of it as well. What about for your day-to-day stuff like hiring coaches, networking, even administrators, all that sort of stuff, the hiring process? Have you seen a lot of changes with that stuff over the past 20 years, or has that remained kind of status quo?
Well, that's gotten a lot more complex because now you do have a lot more agents and things involved, outside entities. The money has gotten so big. The money's gotten big here. And, when you're talking what you're paying some of these people, obviously not here, but at a lot of the other schools, it's changed. It's really changed the world. The complexity of getting people hired, background checks and doing everything to make sure that they can fit this role, it's more difficult. I think before in these athletic director roles, they used to have a lot of old coaches, and it was kind of just a little bit easier transition. Now you have, and not good or bad on this, but now there's ADs that used to work at, a pizza place. They're a CEO and they're business people. So the game has changed, Luke, as far as it becoming more of a business, because right now a lot of my energy is spent on fundraising. A lot of my energy is spent on sponsorships, and a lot of my money is spent on generating revenue and finding ways to generate revenue.
We've talked to some athletic directors who have lamented that things have changed with the hiring process, not talking about coaches, but people who just want to work in college athletics in general, and how the pool has kind of shrunk. Now it's much smaller now than it was years ago, maybe because of how much the college athletics game is changing. Have you found over the course of your career that the amount of people interested in working in college athletics is kind of decreasing, or do you think there's still that same passion that there was when you first started yourself?
No, there's absolutely not the passion. Number one, a lot of kids, young people, they don't want to put in the time. Remember, we'll have some of our communications time. You worked here. There's sometimes we played our first 30 home hit baseball games. These people are there every night. That means sometimes 4 nights a week. And by the way, we have other sports going on as well, too. I don't see the commitment. I'll give you a quick example. We just opened a couple jobs up. We had 4, 5, maybe 7 qualified candidates before we would have had 50. But people are realizing the money's not there. The time and energy that you have to put in on these jobs, it's difficult, and young people are not willing to make the commitment, and they're probably smarter than we, to be honest with you, because when I came in, I'd work 100 hours a week and never even thought about it. And when I got this job, and I was asked the question, how did you move up so quickly? And I said, because I could work harder than any 3 or 4 people put together, and that's what you do. But a lot of young people now, and it's not just young people, it's a lot of people. I think COVID changed all that, Luke. But the pools that we get now compared to what we used to get, I'm not exaggerating, they may not be a tenth. It is very, very difficult to find people right now in college athletics. So their point is spot on.
Yeah, which is interesting and unfortunate as well. Last question on this area. I mean, how has that changed how you go about trying to hire people, the hiring process to fill out a staff or finding the right candidates? How has that changed over the years because of that?
Well, I'll tell you what, one of the things we've had to do is we've had to do more advertising. We've had to get it out to more groups, different groups. Before you could put it on the NCAA website or some other things. Now that doesn't work. You have to advertise a lot more. You have to scrutinize a lot more. Your salaries are scrutinized, which is difficult. We're living in Charleston. Okay, all of a sudden you're coming in there. That salary pays $45,000, $55,000, $60,000. So where are you living? I mean, you're living, an hour away. So that count is complexing for us, for our situation, because of the location. But you just have to do a better job. And what I've been doing is I've had to reach out to more people and say, hey, do you have a guy down the road here that maybe we can approach? So that has definitely changed a lot. And you're spot on with that. But we try to target some people now more, and we have to advertise just a lot more to get out in front of more people.
Getting
and
back,
timing is a key too.
mhm. Getting back towards you and just general questions or advice about, the industry and your career. What's something you would tell yourself when you were coming out of college? Granted, you got into coaching first before the administration side, but just working college athletics in general. What's something you wish you knew then, or that you would tell young people now, something you know now that you wish you knew then?
Well, I don't know if I really have an answer to that. I thought I was pretty adjusted in getting into that, but I can tell you what you need. What my thing was communication, and I tried to stay in touch with as many people as I could. I tried to keep as many avenues open as I could, whether it was with athletic directors or other coaches. So I think now the world's changed. Everything's a little bit more. You're like this with your hands going. And my thing was I'd always pick up the phone. And one of the things I always did, which is now very outdated, is I'd write personal letters. And, sometimes I'd write 70, 100 personal letters, whether it was to ADs, whether it was to coaches, whether whoever it was. But I wanted them to remember that I took the time and energy to send them that, and not a text or an email, which that wasn't back then. But I think it was more personal for me. And I wanted to build relationships with personal people that I could pick up the phone and ask for advice, or ask about a coach, or ask about a career move for myself.
Uh, this probably goes right off of that. This is the question we ask everyone, and people hate answering this question because people don't really like talking about themselves, bragging about themselves. But maybe it's the communication you just said. What do you think are some of the most important traits that have allowed you to be successful in your career and get to where you are currently?
Well, my thing was definitely communication. I could have conversations with millionaires, and I could have conversations eating barbecue. I think communication's number one. I think building relationships. When you look at the fundraising end of it, and even going back to my coaching career, it's not fundraising; it's development, and that development is developing relationships with coaches, with parents, with young people. And I know with basketball, when I got into a very, very, very successful run, it was all about my relationships. I could pick up the phone. The coaches in Chicago, I knew most of them. I had communication with them. I built relationships with them. My thing has always been building relationships, developing relationships, whether they're good or bad to start with, but building them and then developing them, and then following through and continuing them. So for me, that was my key. Is I always communication was always the key. Like I said, I always picked up the phone. And another thing is I was never afraid to be told no. I mean, you missed out on good kids because you were trying to get the best. You missed out on money deals because you might have asked for too much. But you can't be afraid to be told no. And then the question, and I've been up and down in my career, is how quickly can you bounce back from that? And what opportunities can you grasp to bounce back from that? And for me, I personally never worried about it because I knew I was going to go out and find another job, maybe a better job. And because you have to have confidence too. It's not arrogance, it's confidence that you can get the job done. And believe me, some of the jobs I had I probably wasn't qualified for when I went into that first executive director job at UNCW. I never should have had that job. And you're scared, and fear drives you, and you want to do well. And I had a lot of success with that.
Again, just following up on that, you mentioned the networking, relationships, communication for the young people out there trying to get into this industry. You kind of already touched on it, but to reiterate it, I mean, how important is networking for those wanting to be in this industry?
Well, it's everything. It's not what you know, it's who you know. And you see jobs, and I mean, Ed Conroy, we hired Ed back. Obviously he was a strong candidate, but I knew Ed since 1996. I've known Ed forever. I mean, so just different things like that. But it's I think making those contacts and then staying in touch with those contacts, and that doesn't have to be a big thing. Like I said, I'll get ready here. I'll write all my guys that are at Division I schools. That Mark Byington just got the Vanderbilt job, a new friend of mine, and I write them all a letter, congratulate them, and say, hey, good luck. I'm thinking about you. If I can ever help you, let me know. So, and we're going down to play Mark this year, so I'm excited about that. But it's all about, and I know communication when you say that it's changed now. It's not like it used to be, and things are quick and easy and this and that. But what people will remember is if you take the time to reach out for them. I can tell you that.
Couple last things. Again, in terms of advice for young folks trying to get into the industry or move up in the industry, throughout your career, how important do you think good management and stability are at schools? Like when you know it's the right job to go work for that school, how important is that stability and good management for a school to go work for?
Well, first off, a fit is the key. Um, um, Time management is obviously you have to have time management because you can't accomplish a lot if you're not organized to organize your time. But it's a big part of it. It is what it is. You have to be organized. You have to be able to manage time.
What are some qualities, I guess, you would look for in a work environment to know it's the right fit?
Absolutely. People that want to work hard, people that can get to work on time, people that can be held accountable, people that can take responsibility. And if it's not a positive thing, my future as I got older, the only thing that mattered to me was who I worked for. Nothing else mattered. I was going to be able to make a little money and some development. I left a job, a new president came in, had a great gig going, great job. I knew it wasn't going to work. So you stay ahead of it. But for me, and working for Jay Dow here, Dr. Dow, and working for obviously General Walters has been very, very rewarding. But for me, it's Hall who I work for. Nothing else really matters. The job's fine. I can find another job. Everybody can find another job. But I would encourage people, and I tell people all the time, I don't know why you sit around and you're miserable. I mean, go do something else. I mean, my dad told me long enough, if you don't like it, what's going on, change it. But that's a kind of a thing that amazes me. And sometimes money, dictates that. You're making a lot of money, that's fine. But hey, money's great. But I can tell you, you have to enjoy working who your boss is. That's the number one thing. If you don't enjoy that, you're going to be miserable.
Yeah, no, I'm with you 100%. Last thing, when AD has rolled out intercollegiate a job board. We encourage everyone to go check it out, intercollegiate.co, to go see a job board for all of the jobs and all the information in college sports. My question for you, though, would just be how valuable, how important do you think job boards can be for job seekers in college athletics and maybe even for administrators that are trying to fill these jobs in college athletics?
Oh, I think they can be very important, especially for job seekers. If maybe you're coming out, you want to get into the business, but you don't have any possible connections, which happens to a lot of young people. I mean, there's no question about that. And when I started, I was the same way. You don't have those connections, so I think they're important. And like I said earlier, I think it's important for us and the athletic directors and everybody, the leaders, to get that information out to as many avenues as possible because nowadays you never know what group you're going to hit. You know what I mean? And you don't know how you can catch somebody. We've found a few people. We've went on some offsite, some of these things, some off beaten path trail ones, and we found some good people. So it's just kind of, I think, as I said earlier, you have to get in front of as many people and as many opportunities as you can nowadays to find that one person because it used to be easy to do and it's not easy to do now. And for everybody with that, a fit is the most important thing. A fit for you to hire somebody and a fit for that person to come into that thing. If you don't have a fit, it's not going to work.
A big thank you once again to Mike Capaccio, the athletic director at the Citadel, for his time and most importantly, his insights and advice as well. And thank you to you as well for checking out our video. Make sure you subscribe to our YouTube page to see more great videos and content in the future. And also, we encourage you to check out intercollegiate.co for the most comprehensive job board out there for collegiate athletics employees and job seekers as well. Intercollegiate.co. We thank you, and we'll see you next time.